Policy Director, and we stand here this morning with numerous local Democratic leaders, city council members, and council candidates to denounce the increasing influence of big business and the uber wealthy to buy the upcoming November 5th election. Corporations and their owners and executives are pouring unlimited money into PACs in order to buy a Seattle City Council that will keep taxes regressive and low on mega corporations and the top 1% in our city. Unlimited PAC spending by corporations and wealthy individuals to corrupt our local elections process is unacceptable. Seattle voters approved our first in the nation democracy voucher program with the dual goals of publicly funding our elections while lowering contribution limits and placing caps on the amounts raised directly by campaigns. 3 PACs funded by big business and wealthy individuals raised over $3 million this election to try to buy this election. These PACs are the Chamber of Commerce PAC, which is called CASE, to which Amazon has given over $1.5 million alone, along with the misleading named People for Seattle and Moms for Seattle PACs. Seattle already has the most upside-down tax code in Washington, which is the state with the most upside-down tax code in the country. These big money interests are using their money to buy a city council that will defend and keep Seattle's regressive tax code, making Seattle less likely to raise the needed revenue to fund housing, mental health services, and other crucial needed services. Additionally, this spending on independent promotion of candidates allows campaigns supported by big business the veneer of being able to say they're not accepting corporate money or donations directly, while allowing massive corporate spending on behalf of these candidates. Essentially, the corporate spending makes a mockery of grassroots campaigning. The PACs will not only be spending on mailers, very shiny mailers with lots of photoshopping, and on but they also spend on knockers and canvases to get to knock on our doors. These hired hands look like earnest supporters. They look like somebody like me coming up to the door, but really, they are as AstroTurf as the AstroTurf in front of the Spheres, where we're standing today. There are 2 ways to tell big business and the uber wealthy that our vote is not for sale. First, we need to vote for candidates who will represent and fight for workers, families, students, retirees, the disabled, all the people that make Seattle what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Second, we need to support efforts like Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez's legislation to limit corporate spending in Seattle elections. And to talk about her legislation, I'd like to introduce Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez. She proposed legislation that will stop donors like Amazon from using political action committees to be able to pour money into Seattle elections.
All right, Cairo, are you all set up, Cairo? I'm gonna give you a few minutes. In the meantime, if you're here and you want to get under the tent, there's a little bit of space over here. There's enough room for us all underneath. Come on, don't be shy. Help me buy some time for Cairo.
Come on.
You good?
Anyone here need a
We have some space over here, so feel free to come on in.
Actually, thank you.
You all set? All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Lorena Gonzalez, Seattle City Council member. I was proudly elected to represent the people of the city in 2015 as the council's first Latinx person in the history of the city of Seattle. In 2015, Seattle had a historic election. It was the first district-based election cycle. 47 candidates ran. It elected a council, this city elected a council that was younger, which was the highest corporate bidder. My bill will limit political contributions by foreign-controlled corporations like Amazon. It will say that you cannot just simply cut a $1 million check to a super PAC to have an oversized influence on democracy and our local elections. This upcoming year, we will have a battle on our hands to make sure that this legislation is defended is successful and is representative of what we believe democracy should look like in our city. And I look forward to working with everybody behind me and everyone in the city to really send a clear message to those who seek to buy politicians in our electoral system, and that is that we are not for sale. We will continue to fight for the struggling folks in our city, and this bill will help us get that mission across the finish line. Thank you so much to the District Democrat organizations and for the who are going to help us champion to get this across the finish line, because we know as progressives, this is a common goal. Seattle is a progressive city. We will stand with our progressive values, and that in part includes saying no to corporate greed and corruption. Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to introduce Mike O'Brien. He's the council member for District 6, which is my district, so I'm very, very proud that he's been my council member for many years. Thank you.
Almost 10,
I know. But we didn't always have districts.
Hi everyone, my name is Mike O'Brien. I am a Seattle City Council member. I've been on this council now for nearly 10 years. And like Councilmember Gonzalez says, what's happening right now in our city to our democracy with these massive amounts of money is potentially devastating to our democracy. We saw that the chamber stood up this week and claimed that the reason they're putting millions of dollars into buying the city council is because they see this as a dysfunctional city council. And I want to talk about that for a second. Because what's happened in city council is anything but dysfunctional. If you want to see dysfunctional government, you go to Washington, D.C., where nothing can get done. Well, yes, I have disagreements, and have had disagreements over the last 6 months with every single one of my council colleagues. I still work closely with them every single day to fight for the people of Seattle. The challenge that the chamber has is in fact not that we're dysfunctional, but that we're too functional. We have passed landmark legislation, whether it's around tenant rights, minimum wage, protecting the collective bargaining rights for workers and independent contractors, trying to address income inequality and climate change. Seattle is seen as a national leader on the quality, the type, and the amount of legislation we've passed. And the Chamber of Commerce and the businesses in the city, their concern is not that we're dysfunctional. It's that we're actually representing the values of the people of Seattle. And now they're going to spend millions of dollars to try to convince the people of Seattle, not unlike what our president does, by repeating mistruths and lies and trying to convince people that this council is misguided and doesn't represent the people of Seattle. I want to be clear what's happened in Seattle in the last number of years. We've created one of the most prosperous cities in the world. And the beneficiaries of that prosperity have disproportionately been people like those who own these buildings behind us. They have benefited immensely from the prosperity. And they are more than happy to take the wealth that they have generated in our city, that they are going to spend a pittance of their money, but massive amounts to the rest of us, to defend their right to not have to be treated fairly and not have to pay fair taxes to the city. And that is disgusting. We have to have a prosperous city for everyone. I'm okay with businesses prospering as long as we do it fairly and they pay their fair share. And what we're seeing today is those very businesses that have amassed massive amounts of wealth are going to use their resources to fight the democratic system that created it. I really appreciate the grassroots democratic leadership that has across the board rejected this. I'm excited for Councilmember Gonzalez's legislation. I look forward to continuing to reform our democracy so we have a city that actually represents the people and workers in the city of Seattle. Thank you.
And I do want to take one moment to recognize the Democratic groups that have sponsored this today and have their membership has voted to endorse a resolution that both endorses Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez's legislation and also reject big business and super wealthy money in our elections. And those are the King County Democrats, the 36th District Democrats, 37th District Democrats, and 43rd District Democrats. Our next speaker is Matthew Smith. He's an Amazon cargo handler. We thank him for his conviction and his courage to speak out today. And if he faces any retaliation for his presence here today, we want him to know we will have his back.
Everybody, first I'd like to ask all of the other Amazon workers who are here today to come on over if you can. Other Amazon workers. Yeah. My name is Matthew Smith. I live in the Central District and I work as a cargo handler out of an Amazon distribution center in Kent. I'm here to say that this $1 million cash dump by Amazon to buy our city council and swing it to the right is completely unacceptable. Amazon workers like me, the ones here behind me, are coming together to unite against this company's brazen attempt to corrupt our democracy, and we're asking our coworkers to join us. Whether you work in a warehouse, as a driver, as a tech worker downtown, join us by signing the petition that we're launching today, and joining us at a rally next Thursday to oppose this unprecedented attempt to undermine our elections against the interests of working people. Just a few weeks ago, I was out here, right at this spot, when thousands of Amazon workers and other tech workers walked off the job, calling on Amazon to stop funding anti-climate politicians and their business dealings with the fossil fuel industry. Well, obviously Amazon and Jeff Bezos didn't get that message, because with the $1 million donation that they just put into our elections, they're working with Puget Sound Energy, the biggest polluter in the region, to oppose progressive and socialist candidates like Sean Scott, like Tammy Morales, like Shama Sawant, who are fighting for a Green New Deal for Seattle, and who are fighting to make Seattle a leader on climate justice. It's clear that Amazon didn't get that message, so it's time they hear from us again. It's time to escalate this fight and show that Amazon workers and tech workers in the city are united. We're united against big businesses like Amazon trying to buy our election, and we're united against their attempts to kill policies like rent control, like the Green New Deal, that would save our planet and empower working people in this city. We're calling on all Amazon workers, all tech workers, and all of our supporters to sign our petition and mobilize for a lunchtime rally next Thursday, October 24th at noon, 1 week from today, right here at the Amazon Spheres, to oppose this cash dump by Amazon into our election. Once again, that's next Thursday at noon. Come join us. We're going to make sure that Amazon gets this message. Thank you.
Thank you. That is next Thursday at noon. And now I'm going to introduce council member and candidate Shama Sawant, who is no stranger to coming to Amazon and speaking truth and standing up for workers.
Good morning, everybody. The last time I was here with hundreds of housing justice advocates who were fighting for the Amazon tax to fund affordable housing and homeless services. And we saw what happened, how brazenly Amazon and Jeff Bezos and big corporations bullied our city, attempting to make us cower into submission. And that is why it's so important that we are here today, again, on this rainy autumn morning. Socialist, Democratic Party members, Amazon and tech workers, warehouse workers, LGBTQ and housing advocates, we are proudly here together rejecting Amazon's $1 million bombshell this week and its flagrant attempt to undermine Seattle's democratic process in this attempted hostile corporate takeover. But we also should remember the fact that these big corporations are resorting to these open methods of war against our city is a confirmation that our movement has been effective in winning progressive victories. And what the billionaires are angry about is not only what we have already won, but they are afraid of the contagion of working class confidence and unity in the grassroots that will continue to fight for more progressive victories. Precisely because we have been successful in pushing back against the corporate agenda, our socialist city council seat and candidates who are running on a progressive agenda are in the crosshairs of Amazon, Uber, and corporate real estate. Progressives and socialists, Democratic Party members, tech workers, renters, middle-class homeowners, progressive small businesses throughout the city are uniting to stop Bezos and the billionaires. The billionaires want to keep the city a corporate tax haven, a city where working people and others struggle to pay disproportionate taxes, and a city where real estate moguls make untold profits by gouging and exploiting and economically evicting renters. We, on the other hand, want to tax big business to fund a massive expansion of publicly owned, high-quality, affordable social housing and a Green New Deal. And we want to win a universal citywide rent control free of loopholes. A poll released just this week shows that 56% of Seattle's voters believe large businesses should be taxed to fund affordable housing. Over 12,000 people have signed a petition for rent control. 25 community and labor organizations have passed resolutions in favor of rent control, including the 32nd District and the 43rd Legislative District of the Washington State Democratic Party. We have the majority of ordinary people on our side. The billionaires have billions of dollars, but we have the people. My opponent is bankrolled through direct donations by wealthy Republicans like hotel mogul and known union buster Richard Hedrian, corporate executives. My campaign is fueled by working people's donations. My opponent has Amazon executives. My campaign is fueled by donations by tech workers and warehouse workers from Amazon. And that is why it's very, very important that Amazon workers, tech workers, and workers like Matthew Smith are here with us, taking a stand and saying, we may be working in these corporations, but we have nothing in common with the billionaires who profit from our labor. That's why let's make sure we make a public statement. Matthew Smith and workers like him are putting their livelihoods on the line to come out and protest next Thursday at our rally. If they face retaliation, community, are we going to have their back?
Yes.
Let's make sure we make this a successful election campaign, and let's remember what's at stake. On election night, what will be at stake is who gets to run Seattle. Big business and their corporate stooges, or ordinary working people and those of us who share a vision of social justice for our city. So let's come out in big numbers Thursday at noon and go out door knocking for all our progressive campaigns. I want to end with a chant. When billionaires are on the attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When billionaires are on the attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When billionaires are on the attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Thank you and solidarity.
We could also say, stand up, vote back, which is why we're here today. Stand up, vote back, stand up, fight back. Next, I would like to introduce Amy Madden, who's on the executive board of the 43rd District Democrats. She's the author and organizer of this resolution that has basically started this grassroots movement and why we're all here today. So I'd like to introduce Amy Madden, who'd like to come speak.
Thanks, everyone. Seattle took an innovative step forward in campaign financing with the Democracy Voucher Program, which gave everyday people the opportunity to support the campaign of their choice. Democracy vouchers gave many communities a voice in the political process that we have never had before. Now, I'm afraid the voices of underrepresented communities are going to be drowned out by a tsunami of corporate spending. As a survivor of childhood homelessness in this city, I've experienced how people living on the margins are the ones most impacted by policy. Because of this, we need leaders who will listen to the people who most need to be heard. Chamber-backed candidates are failing to show up at forums on the housing crisis, police accountability, the climate emergency, disability rights, and other issues that affect communities who do not have big PAC money. The disability and LGBTQ communities I'm a part of deserve to be heard. My Black, Indigenous friends and neighbors of color deserve to be heard. Our unsheltered neighbors deserve to be heard. Working people deserve to be heard, because this is our city. Big business is not seeking to elect leaders who will make corporations pay their fair share and build a more inclusive, green, compassionate city. As Seattleites, we need to ask ourselves, do we want leaders who work for those with the most power and wealth, or those who work for us?
Our next speaker is Tammy Morales, City Council candidate for District 2. She's the effective and amazing organizer and candidate from South Seattle and the Chinatown International District.
Thank you, Summer. Thanks to everybody who's organized this. Thank you to Fix Democracy First. We know that Amazon's PR is working really hard to convince us that the $1 million contribution that they've made is because they truly care about our community. They are giving warehouse tours to Girl Scouts to convince them that that is a great working environment for them to aspire to. But as Matthew said, if you talk to actual warehouse workers, you hear a different story. I did speak to warehouse workers this week who told me that their productivity is tracked, their every movement is tracked in the warehouse, and they get time off task calculated. That time off is considered stealing against the company. They only get part-time benefits. They only work part-time so that they don't have to get paid benefits. Their third shift employees are taking diet pills and using energy drinks so that they can keep pace with these pick rates that they are required to keep pace with. It's really important that we don't be duped by this PR effort by Amazon to convince us that they have our best interests at heart. That is absolutely not true. What we know from journalists is that painted inside the walls at Amazon is one of the precepts of the company, which is that you should not, don't compromise for the sake of social cohesion. Think about that. Don't compromise for the sake of social cohesion. That is not a core value of this company. Our community's cohesion is not important to this company. Only profits are important to this company. It's true, and that is why they are trying to buy a local government that won't ask questions about worker safety. They're trying to make sure that we have corporate-backed candidates in power. And as Summer was saying, and as Amy was saying, these candidates are not showing up to hear from our community members who are most disproportionately impacted by these bad policies that they're trying to advocate. It's time to say no to chamber donors who fought like hell against $15 an hour. It's time to say no to big developers who are trying to privatize public land in this city. It's time to say no to billion-dollar corporations whose warehouse workers are relying on food stamps while Jeff Bezos makes $87,000 a minute. That is not okay, and we should not be allowing that kind of influence in our local government. It's time to say yes to a local government that will work for the people of this city, not for corporations. And it's time to say yes to courageous city council members and city council candidates who are willing to speak up for community members. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Scott, the City Council candidate for District 4. He is the only candidate in his district who is not accepting corporate PAC money and who has led citywide in the Democracy Voucher Program.
Some time ago, in convening a task force on progressive revenue for housing and homelessness, the mayor, current city council asked what the business community could do for the city of Seattle if they were brought to the table. And I think in the last 48 hours, we have our answer. I think Amazon could be called many things, but you couldn't call them inconsistent. With the ratification of the EHT, which was unfortunately eventually repealed, the call came from the business community to reach down to the bottom of the barrel to find any candidates that would be willing to run in these 2019 elections to shift city government to the right. So just as we've seen, I think in a post-2016 presidential election, the political reality since that year, the forces of reaction stigmatize illegal immigrants at the national level, demonize them and criminalize them. Seattle is not so immune from that conservative reaction, which I think is fueled in many ways by the same business community that we're fighting against today. The rhetoric that we see from documentaries like, so-called documentaries, like Seattle is Dying, with respect to our houseless neighbors, mirrors and tracks very closely the ways that people talk about so-called illegal immigrants nationally. And so this election cycle is really going to have to be about whether or not Seattle is going to be a mature enough city, an inclusive enough city, and I think a committed enough city to actually push back on those forces of reaction both nationally and locally. I'm a proud 43rd LD Democrat, just as I'm a proud member of the Seattle Democratic Socialists of America, but we also know that all Democrats are not created equally. All of us in our races have Democratic challengers, but I think the question that all of those who are watching this press conference and all of those who are here today should be asking ourselves is, where are the opponents of us in these races, in Districts 2, 3, and 4? Where's Mark Solomon? Where's Egan O'Ryan? Where's Alex Peterson, who couldn't even be bothered to show up to a police accountability forum while running to represent the district where Charlene Lyles was murdered by the Seattle Police Department? Our struggle has to be one that includes one for multiracial justice. It's a cross-generational coalition where we're not going to also allow elderly homeowners to be duped into voting for progressives, so-called progressives who are very much wolves in sheep's clothing in this election cycle. Candidates who are going to be beholden to the developer class, as was mentioned before, that has been accelerating gentrification in this city, especially in the Central District and beyond. So I hope all of us take a close look at these elections. All of us turn out to vote on November 5th and make sure we cast our ballots for the candidates that we know are going to be sticking up for the fights that we were sticking up for before we ever decided to seek public office. Those of us who are union organizers, folks who were organizers for the rights for Black lives in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker today, before we will have Q&A, is Scott Osbach. He is the chair of the 43rd District Democrats, and he is speaking on behalf of all the four Democratic grassroots organizations whose members have already voted to say we want big money and the uber wealthy to stay out and not buy our elections.
I want to start by thanking everyone who's joined us this morning in support of keeping corporate PACs and other PACs funded by wealthy donors out of local elections, and especially Matthew Smith, who took a great step of calling out his employer. We really respect him for that. Grassroots Democratic Party organizations from across Seattle, including the King County 43rd, 36th, and 37th Legislative District Democrats, passed these resolutions against the spending because we believe that our elections should be free from the influence of large corporations like Amazon, Vulcan, Comcast, and Puget Sound Energy, which don't have the interests of our city at heart. They only have their own economic interests that they care about. As of today's PDC reporting, CASE alone, the Chamber of Commerce's PAC, has nearly as much in contributions available, $2.4 billion, as every candidate running in Seattle combined. They would rather spend their millions of dollars in an attempt to buy a new city council than contribute their fair share to solving our housing, our homelessness, and our climate crises. Additionally, we are extremely concerned about the wealthy Republican donors from the east side, from Bellevue, from Medina, who are the top donors to the so-called People for Seattle and Moms for Seattle PACs. They understand that the Republican Party is a toxic brand here in Seattle. We do not stand for the Republican Party's values, but they are trying to influence our elections by funneling it through PACs that regular people would not understand where they're coming from. We've called on these PACs to stop this spending, but they've shown no intention of doing so. So instead, we call on Seattle voters to take action. Do your own research on the candidates running in your district. Look for references from community groups. All of our organizations have endorsed candidates. You can find those on our websites. When you receive the barrage of attack mailers that are on the way to your mailbox right now, you can either recycle them like a good Seattleite, or if you're going to take a look for printed on all of them is who is funding them. Take a look for CASE, the Civic Alliance for a Sound Economy, Moms for Seattle, or People for Seattle, and know that if those are the PACs that are funding these mailers, they care about their own economic interests and not yours. These PACs are also hiring paid canvassers to get out the word about their anointed canvassers. If someone knocks on your door, you're please ask them, are you a volunteer or are you a paid canvasser? And keep that in mind when listening to what they tell you. So we want to request to all voters in Seattle to vote in this election. Tell your friends and family to vote, because we're voting for our families, we're voting for our neighbors, we're voting for our city, and we're voting for our climate. And by voting is the only way we can push back against this. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions. We have others here. We have a representative from Fix Democracy First to answer questions on Councilmember Gonzalez's bill, Cindy Black here. So yeah, we'll open it to the floor. Questions?
Question for Summer Stinson.
Yes.
Can you go to the mic, please?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. The question is, political spending is an expression of speech. Why do you want to limit free speech?
Well, that's an interesting question, because basically placing their bets or putting their investment and their big money into candidates who they believe will be compliant in keeping taxes low. And they want to keep taxes low in our city. They want to keep taxes low in our state. And I have battled these very same corporations in Olympia on this very same issue. And they want to keep taxes low in our country. And that is what they want, because they want to retain the wealth for themselves. They do not mind wealth disparity or income disparity. That's how they have many houses, they have yachts, they live a life that most people do not live. We have a growing disparity in our country, in our state, in our city, and we need to face that head on. And the way we do that is to stand up, vote back.
I just want to clarify what Summer said. They want to keep taxes low on corporations and the wealthy.
Yes.
They're very happy, as someone mentioned earlier, they're very happy to fund levy campaigns that put the tax burden on Seattle homeowners, on Seattle renters, but they don't want to pay a single cent themselves. So that's why you have to stand up and vote.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions?
For the candidates in particular, I feel like Amazon's kind of articulated their position in blasts of statements every quarter and pretty much silence after that. Has anybody had a meeting with the company or heard like their articulation of what they want on their own behalf? I haven't heard a compelling case. Has anybody asked or heard from them?
Amazon executives have recently reached out to my campaign asking for a meeting. I have written back saying I'm happy to meet them, but I do not believe in, as an elected representative of working people, in having closed-door meetings with corporate executives. So I have said that if I come to the meeting, I will come with community members, and I'm waiting for them to schedule it.
Well, I think my District 4 campaign was one of the few that was not even sent the Chamber of Commerce questionnaire back in March, and we consider that a great badge of pride that our Declaration of Independence, if you will, from corporate influence was declared so strongly and so loudly in our campaign's announcement in November of 2018 that they just decided that we were going to be a lost cause as far as listening to influence of major corporations in the city. So you responded to that email, Shama? I saw that email as well. We have a lot of things that we're doing right now as far as knocking on doors, like every campaign does. And we didn't so much as respond, I think, for largely a lot of the same reasons that Councilmember Sawant had mentioned. So I look forward to having a robust conversation with Amazon about what their aims for the city are after we're elected on November 5th, hopefully. But I think we've seen loud and clear, without having to attend a meeting, what their agenda is up to this point.
I'll say that we also received an invitation and let them know that we would be bringing a union member with us to ask about the safety of their warehouse workers.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you, everybody, for coming. Many of us will be able to stick around for a few minutes if you have questions for individuals. Thank you so much, and I believe that everybody should have received the correct spelling of all the speakers here today, but if there's anything you want to clarify, just come talk to me or to Scott afterwards. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?